Hey, and welcome back to the podcast. This is episode number 2, and we're talking all about Generation Z, my people. So, I basically, in this podcast, talk about what it's like growing up in the 21st century. I tell you guys sort of my experience as these major world events have happened in the past 18 years, sort of how I process these things happening, as these world events are happening from the time I was a kid. I sort of talk about how I processed them then, how I process them now, and what it's like to live in this culture as a child and to grow up in it. So we talk about all sorts of things, like living to see the first black president. We talk about technology. We talk about violence, social justice issues, a little bit about like the Black Lives Matter movement, and other all sorts of things are discussed. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. I hope it can offer a different perspective if you're maybe from a different generation, or if you're young than like me or younger than me. I hope you can just relate and reflect, and we can be here. We can be eye to eye. But yeah, I hope you all enjoy, and I will see you all on the flip side. All right, welcome to episode 2 of the PassionFruit podcast. So in this episode, well, first of all, if you haven't seen the first one, I talk about the podcast, why it's called, what I plan to do with it. I introduce you guys to me. So if you're interested in that, you should watch that. It gives you some nice background and, I guess, context. You don't have to if you don't want to, It has nothing to do with this episode. But if you'd like to, that'd be awesome. That'd be cool. I thought I'd just recommend that since it's, context. Anyways, today I wanted to talk about growing up in the 21st century. This topic has been on my mind for a while because a lot of things, I guess, adults and just people don't understand about this new generation, simply because they've never grown up in an environment like the one we have today, or like they haven't grown up in the world that we're growing up in. So I think a lot of the things like adults, or you just see media people saying about young people, not everyone's like this, but I've seen a lot of common themes that adults have about young people nowadays. Some are positive, some are negative, and I just wanted to talk about it and kind of give you my perspective and share my experience of growing up in America, personally, in the 21st century. I can't speak for, other countries because I don't live there, but just, growing up in the 21st century, for me in America, let's talk about it. So first things first, I actually did find some websites online that I thought I would go through. I thought they were kind of interesting. I looked up like significant things that happened in the 21st century, and I found a really cool, a couple of really cool, timeline websites that just say, some of the most prominent events that's happened in the 21st century. And since I've lived through them, mainly, kind of, I was born in 2001, I mentioned that in the first episode, but since I grew up in this time, I thought it'd be cool to sort of go through them, even if I didn't grow up through it, if that makes sense. I was still around. It still happened in my lifetime, if that makes sense. This is not making any sense. Anyways, but I thought I'd go through them, talk about them, my opinion of them as someone who this happened in my lifetime, and yeah. So, the first one I found, this one's from the gentleman'sjournal.com. So, shout out. But first, the first image on this website is 2000, the world welcomes the millennium. So, that one I'm not really going to talk about because, there's not really much to say. We all know 2000, the turn of the century. But 2001, this is interesting. Steve Jobs introduces the first iPod. I thought that'd be kind of cool because, this would be kind of cool to talk about, because we've, as young people, as 21st century children, have grown up in a world where technology is at an all-time, I'm not necessarily like high, but like technology has never been like it is now. You know, like technology has always existed. Obviously, technology has always happened and been a thing, but technology has never been to the extent at it like it is right now. So it's weird thinking that like the first iPod, a lot of things happened like in our lifetime. And I don't know what to really like say about it, because it's always kind of like been a part of my life. My first iPod, actually, I had an iPod Shuffle. It was green. I remember it was like $50. I got it for like Christmas or my birthday or something, and I was like, wow, $50 is so much money. And it is to an extent, but like I remember being like, wow, this is like a piece of this is like to be treasured forever, you know? This is a piece of art. But I had a green iPod Shuffle. It didn't even have a screen. I was like, I want to say I was in 4th grade, which would have meant I was 3rd or 4th grade. I can't recall. Which would mean I was either 8 or 9 years old. So this was either 2010 or 2009 or 2010, right? Hold up. Okay, so 8. When I'm 8, I'm 2. Yeah, okay. Anyway, something like that. You get the general time frame. So that was my first iPod. Terrible music choices, but it's cool. I don't know. It's kind of weird to think about. And then I later on, in 4th grade, I believe. Okay, so I must have gotten the iPod Shuffle in 3rd grade, because in 4th grade, I got my first iPod Touch, which was like the closest thing I had to a phone, which is basically, I mean, you should know what an iPod Touch is. It's basically just like a phone, but without texting, and with like 8 gigabytes. It's like, imagine an iPhone 4 that's not fat, like it's half the width, and it's like you can't text people that don't have Apple devices, and you can't call people. I actually have my iPod Touch right here. It's so tiny. Like it's so tiny compared to like this can fit in my palm, and I have small hands. So it's so weird. It's so weird to think about. But this is my first. It's so weird to think this was like, wow, guys, this is like technology right here. But yeah, that was my first iPod Touch. And that's actually, my iPod Touch is really honestly how I got into media. That's how I got into making YouTube videos. It's how I discovered YouTube videos. Wow, it's so weird to think that I watched YouTube on this tiny screen. Like, it's hard to, like, explain because you guys can't see this, right? Like, you can't see this. This is, oh my god, did you hear that? That's iOS 6, guys. That's, or whatever it was. I'm pretty sure this is iOS 6. Let's actually check. Let's check. General software update. What are we on right now? Oh, I'm not connected to the internet. Dang it. Okay. Well, I think it's iOS 6. I'm not gonna connect right now. But that's really cool. I still have some apps on here. This is when I first got Instagram. That was interesting. This is also, I have Video Effects Live. Oh my goodness. This is like my first app I used to make videos. Like, this is how I started making videos, you guys, was with my teeny iPod Touch. Oh, that's so weird to think about. Like, it's so tiny. Like, go look up a pic. Like, this is a podcast. You can't see me. But, like, go look up a picture of the iPod Touch. Oh, I don't even think a picture serves it justice. Like, in my hand, it's tiny. But yeah, I have Video Effects Live. That's how I started making videos, and which is weird to think about, because, like, now I'm basically, like, I plan to major in film in college. So the fact that, like, it all started with something as simple as, like, an iPod Touch is kind of, like, weird to think about. You know, like it all started, like, even though we grew up in a world of technology, and yes, I do believe that things that can be used for good can also be used for evil. Like, I feel like a lot of people and adults and society tends to think that kids just always have their heads in their phones. And yes, there is some, like there are some people that when you abuse it, it becomes unhealthy. But I feel like I've learned so much from just this technology. I don't know, it's kind of cool. Bakery Story was honestly like my first like experience with like media, online communities and interaction, like building a platform, almost like building a, that's like the Bakery Story. That's the next tab I'm looking at on my iPod Touch. That was basically my introduction to like the online space. And it's so weird to think about. You don't, like, it's hard to explain when like people don't understand, but if you don't know what Bakery Story is, it's basically like this team has all these like story games. So they have like Farmville, that actually used to be a Facebook game back in the day, which is Farm Story on the App Store. There's a Restaurant Story. That was actually my first game I got. But I like Bakery Story the best. I use that the most often. There's Pet Shop Story, Fashion Story. There's so many story games, and basically the premise is that you build up whatever the app is about. So like for Bakery Story, you build up your own bakery, you make your own goods, you sell them to your customers, etc. And, so on and so forth. So like Restaurant Story, you build up your own restaurant. Pet Shop Story, make your own pet shop. Fashion Story, your own like a fashion boutique, etc., etc. Farmville or Farm Story, you make your own farm. And I literally had all of them. Like, it was kind of unhealthy, but it was so much fun to me. Like, building something from the ground up has always been like where I thrive the most. Like, I love to create that way and have like full control over like I don't know, I like having just my ideas in my head come to life. And actually thinking about that, my first DS game, I'm going to talk about this more later. My first DS game was called Style Savvy. This is also something that was like $50, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm rich. Or not I'm rich, but like this is so much money. Like this is a gift. And it was a gift, don't get me wrong. $50, as I said earlier, that's a lot of money to an extent. But but yeah, my first game for my DS, not my first game, but like one of the most prominent games that I remember for my DS was a Style Savvy. And basically I remember seeing the ads on it on like TV on like Disney and or whatever channel I was watching, and where you basically build up your own like style boutique, and that was a lot of fun. And so I feel like, so I've always really liked doing that. It's really cool to think about, because I was thinking kind of like recently about what I want to do with my life, and I always have wanted to, and I mentioned this in the first podcast episode, I've always wanted to like create my own business. Like ideally, like at some point in my life, I want to make my own business where I can just create and do stuff. And yeah, and I feel like these types of things I've always enjoyed those types of things, looking back on like these apps and stuff where I like made my own like brand almost. But anyways, back to what I was saying on Bakery Story. I kind of talked about, like, I kind of, explained what I was getting at there. But I remember we used to have these things called walls on Restaurant Story, Bakery Story, etc. Where it's basically where you interacted with people, so you could type messages on people's walls. Like every day people would like leave you tips and be like, daily tips. Think of it like a Snapchat streak where you send like a picture to your friend like every day and it'd be like and but think about that on this kid game, Bakery Story. Well, I mean, anyone could play it. So this like app game, Bakery Story, people would be like tips, like it was kind of like, your streaks. You put tips every day. It would increase when you tip more people, it increased your star rating, and the more likely people were like to check out your restaurant and stuff, or your bakery. So yeah, and you can also add people and things like that. But the reason I mention this is because this is how, once again, I said this earlier, I sort of like started with online communities and like the internet space, because a lot of us used to like hold events on our walls, so we'd like make friends with each other, and like some of them I did know their first names. I don't remember any of them now, but I should actually log into my bakery story. Ooh, I should do that. But I remember I used to host, because people used to have such like creative ideas. Hold up. Ooh, that's the music. Oh darn, my internet's not on. Okay, my iPod's about to die. But so I'm gonna do this real quick. But that was my bakery story. That's the bakery story music, if any of you remember this app, because I can't be the only one. I probably am, but you know, whatever. But anyways, we used to hold like events on our walls. Like, I had a movie once, or a couple times I had a movie. I've had emoji contests where people try to make like a design with emojis, and then, it's like a contest, and then someone gets eliminated each time, or something like that. I forget how it works, but it was like The Voice, but like for emoji designs. Also, this is back in like iOS 6. Like the emojis were nothing like they are now. I mean, wow, guys, I'm a total 2000 kids. Yeah, the early 2000s or 2000 or whatever. You know, new kids will never know what it's like to have old emojis in tiny Apple devices. Oh, but I love this music. It's such a throwback. But I used to throw... Oh my god. Oh, ooh, no. I don't want to spend any money. Ads pop up. Ads just popped up. Alright, but, I held, like, movies, emoji contests. I even did, like, I remember doing Bible studies on my wall, and that was a lot of fun. And, like, I've just always, like, loved to create things and to, like, be, like, my own boss, if that makes sense. Okay, my iPod's on 20%, so I'm trying to, like, hurry up. This is also pretty laggy since, you know, it's an old device. So, here we go. Oh my god, please go away. I don't want all these ads. Like, I did not ask for you. Why aren't you going away? Why are you not going away? I don't want to buy a freaking table. I'm so confused. What if I go to main? Okay, I'm like not even like podcasting. I'm just like playing this game. Okay, I wanted to try to show you like what's on my wall because I haven't looked on this in literally years. Or maybe it's just been a year. Sometimes I do like to peek back on and see what happened and like look back. But I don't remember the last time I looked back at this. But yeah, so I've done like Bible studies, I've done movies, I've done restaurants, like I've done like little bakery shops. And you could like, I remember people used to like leave their storm IDs. That's what they were called, storm IDs. And that's how you could add people and make them your neighbor. Like your neighbor on the app. And people used to like leave their friends storm IDs and you would like go give them your treat or whatever you're selling. Like I've done a cupcake shop. There's so many things. If I actually go to my notes app on here, I have so many things that I've put on my wall. Oh, this makes me so happy. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I did daily Bible verses. The last thing that's on my wall is actually from March 7th, 2015. That's interesting. That's so cool. Okay, but then like the earliest thing on my wall is October 6th, 2014. Obviously I've deleted stuff, and I wish I kind of haven't because I want to know what other people, like what I said before. But I deleted stuff to like, you know, clean it up, and once I read something I would delete it and respond. No, this is so like heartwarming. Oh my goodness. Someone says, "Me too, when I read the verse on your wall, they are very encouraging. Cheered and tipped and have a blessed day." That's so cool. I love it. I love it. People are just so nice on this community, and I just remember like literally, okay, I'm gonna stop talking about this soon, but I literally remember like every day before school in the morning, I'd put on like something to bake, for like 8 hours. Like the longer it took to make something, the more your rating went up and the more your customers like it and the better your bakery was. So before school, every morning, I remember, like this is from like 5th grade or like 4th grade, whenever I started this game, to like, I don't know, like 6th grade? I have no idea how long I played this game for. But I'd always like wake up in the morning, I would put something on for 8 hours, and then when I came home, they would be done. So from school. So it was like my process. I'd also put stuff on when I went to sleep. Like it was a whole thing. I was very strategic, pulling up calculators and math. Like it was a whole thing. Okay. Anyways, if you're still here, I was talking about Bakery Story for way too long. But it's just cool looking back at all the stuff on my old phone, or my old iPod, because I think we're talking about, I was talking about 2001, Steve Jobs invented the first iPod, and I got to this topic, because I whipped up my first iPod. Oh my goodness, I have YouTube opened up. First of all, YouTube is so old. Oh my goodness, like this is crazy. But yeah, this is how I started watching YouTube. This is how I discovered YouTube. I remember before. Does it still have like the built-in YouTube app? No. I think, okay. I remember one of the older versions of iOS 6. YouTube was built in, and it was like this weird like old school TV icon. I don't think it's on here. I think I've passed that update. But it's so cool. I have a flashlight app. Oh my god, throwback to before we had flashlights on our devices. Oh, it's so weird. I love this and I hate this all at the same time. Well, yeah, I don't know. I went to my music, the Harlem Shake. Okay. Everything's like, it looks so bad, but I love it. The nostalgia, it's so great. Alright, anyways, I think I'm gonna stop talking about this for right now. Point is, internet for me, or at least technology for me, has always been a huge part of like my life, and I feel like it's shaped the way I've grown up, quite literally. For me personally, obviously I can only speak for myself personally, having like this technology at my fingertips, like from a young age, and having this technology like basically always with me. Cause I got this iPod Touch when I was like in 4th grade. I was like 9 years old. And obviously I was just like playing games and stuff, but but having this, prominent piece of technology has basically influenced what I'm doing with my life now and what I plan to do with my life as a career, which is so weird to think about. Like, I'm thinking if I was born in a different time, would I still be doing the same things? Like, how would what I'm doing change? Or how, I don't know, like it's just weird to think about because of this technology, like because of my circumstance, it influences the opportunities I have, the opportunities all of us have, and what I want to do with my life. That's crazy to think about. Technology's not going anywhere. But yeah, so that's a nice little chat about 21st century and technology. But I'm gonna keep on going. We literally got to 2001. That's also the year I was born. And then another thing, 2001, which I knew this was, I wanted to talk about this, but it was the 9/11 attacks on the Twin Towers. I can't talk about this in depth because, as I said, I was born in 2001. So I was a month old when this happened. Yeah, I was about to be a month old when 9/11 happened. So I don't remember it, obviously, but I thought I would briefly kind of talk about, I guess, what it's like to have this be alive when, like, have this happen or these types of things happen, like, while I was alive, but not really being able to experience it. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm gonna start talking. But it's something you hear about, in school. I don't know when we started, they started talking about this or bringing up, the idea of terrorism, because obviously it's a you have to be mature enough, and it has to be an age appropriate topic to bring up. So I don't really know when people started to talk about it or to tell us that this happened, since it's such a significant event in history. And I'm trying to be careful here because I know this is like a sensitive topic to a lot of people, and it's tragic. Like, it truly is one of the most tragic events in not just American history but world history. One of the most shocking that also. But it's interesting because I don't want to say, because obviously terrorism is not like a, I'm trying to like be careful how I word this. Terrorism is not like, it's not like before 9/11 there were no terrorists that existed. Like, that's that's not true. But after 9/11, the shift on the way we think about terrorism and the way we're almost taught, that has changed. 9/11 has almost shifted the conversation, or this has shifted the dialogue to what we think and what we think of when it comes to terrorism. And I say that to specifically point out things like, a lot of times when people think about terrorism, I can't say this word. We automatically start equating terrorism to Islam, which is not right, but it's no secret that the world does that, and America does that, and not just America, but people do that. But I think especially it's been ingrained into like American ideology and just, society psychology, that when we think of terrorism, we think of, the Islamic faith. And it's saddening to think how this has sort of impacted that, and how this event has shifted that narrative, which I don't condone that or believe that's right. Something, as a person who has friends that are, Islamic and that are Muslims, like, that's not what that faith stands for. And in anything, not just religion or faith, but in any, like, ideology, any notion, any idea, there are going to be extremists. But it's important that we don't confuse extremists for what something actually stands for. So, for example, you could say that about Christianity. As a Christian myself, there are extreme Christians, and I do acknowledge that. There are some quote-unquote Christians. There's a lot of people that call themselves Christians but aren't really Christians. That's why I really don't like to use that word. I don't like really using the word religion, because religion to me just sounds like a I don't know, like a rule book, and like, it sounds like structured. I don't know if that makes sense. But I feel like faith, like, for me, how I've been taught is like faith is like a relationship with God. It's not like a religion and a rule book and we're better than you because XYZ. But there are extremists and people that think that way, and not that that's right, and that's not that what Christianity and the Bible stands for, but there are people who do that. And the reason I bring up that example, because I can speak on that because I understand that faith. And there's extremism in everything, like the feminist movement that's happening. There's going to be extreme, like, I don't know if I should say extreme feminism. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's what am I trying to say here? I'm thinking out loud here now. I'm just trying to thinking of just just things and like ideas that are recent and current. So I thought of like, the feminist movement. I don't know where I'm going with that. But, point is, there's extremists and everything, people that are going to overly, that take things to an extreme, but that should not disrupt our thinking from the core of its beliefs, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I say all that to say, it's interesting living in a time where, like, this sort of event has sort of changed the narrative. And, okay, I'm gonna, like, stop messing with stuff. I'm, like, clicking a pen. But, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. Obviously, airport security went up as after 9/11. Like, it hasn't been the same beforehand. I don't know what it was like beforehand because obviously I was just born. Actually, when 9/11 occurred, my dad was he flew out to his hometown. He's originally from Los Angeles to see some family for a funeral, actually. And I was a month old, so my mom was home with me, my older brother, and my younger brother wasn't alive at the time. But he wasn't born yet. That's how I should have worded that. He wasn't born yet. But I was a month old in remembering, I don't remember this, but from what I was told, after 9/11 happened, he was like stuck in Los Angeles, or was he in Atlanta? I don't know if he was in Los Angeles or he was in Los Angeles, California, or Atlanta, Georgia. I'm not sure, but I think he was in Los Angeles. He was stuck there for a couple weeks, or not a couple weeks, but a couple days, because they shut down the airlines and didn't know what was going on. And my dad just, he tells me that story because, I was a month old, and he wanted to go home and see his baby, his daughter, but, no one knew what was going on. It was crazy. And I don't know, it's such a weird thing to think about. And I've watched, documentaries about 9/11, and I think it's so fascinating, and not in, a good way, but I like hearing, the reason I'm so intrigued about hearing the stories of, I think people who lived it, people who survived it, people who were there, who experienced it, is because it shows you, I guess, why, I don't know, why would I be, fascinated or, so intrigued by listening or seeing those things? I think also it's important, I think one reason is because it's important to not take these such things for granted. If you continue to show the pain and the horror, we take things like this, like terrorism and violence, more seriously. And I think stuff like this shows why we should do that and why it's important that we do that. So, yeah, that's, I feel like that's kind of sums up my thoughts on 9/11, violence, terrorism, just this whole shift of security and violence when it comes to 21st century. And if we hop into 2018, when we talk about, the March for Our Lives movement, gun violence in America, all these sorts of things, I feel like it all kind of connects back to, things we've experienced in the past. And, it's weird to think about. And, yeah, I think those are pretty much my thoughts. I'll say more if anything else comes to mind. But, I'm gonna take a quick break. I've been recording for about 30 minutes, and, I'm gonna get some water, and we're gonna move on to, the next big 21st century thing. Hey guys, so I just wanted to peep in and ask you if you are enjoying the podcast so far. I would greatly appreciate it if you would leave me a rating or a comment wherever you're watching. Let me know what you think about the podcast. That'd be greatly appreciated. I'm also thinking about creating an email for the podcast where people can send in, response and feedback that way if you're interested. So if you're enjoying the podcast, be sure to be on the lookout for that. And, thanks. Let's get back into the episode. Alrighty, so welcome back. Took a quick little break, sort of had some time to evaluate my thoughts, what I wanted to say. I'm gonna skip around on this timeline, that's what I decided, because I think I hit a lot of the points that sort of are reoccurring themes throughout this timeline. But I want to make sure I still save time for, to talk about other things. So the next thing I think I want to highlight on is 2004, Facebook is launched. And I'm not going to really specifically talk about Facebook because, no one in my, no shade, no one in my, generation really uses Facebook. I'm going to be honest, the main reason people use Facebook if they're, my age, or, in high school, college, it's honestly, for I think for one school, or for, other professional, I guess, workforce reasons, I know some people use Facebook like in college to get in contact with clubs, because sometimes that's like the only way clubs and like stuff at college like interact with you. I don't know. I'm not in college yet. I don't know. Can't speak from personal experience. I don't even have a Facebook. Like, yeah. Facebook kind of died. But I thought I would talk about just social media in general, and just, I guess, some stigmas that come around from being on social media, from having social media at, you know, a young age. Things you kind of have, you grow up sort of learning and getting influence from when it comes to social media, and things like that. So I actually did write down some notes, and when I thought of that, just the idea of social media, and I think mainly a lot of young people, or people my age, I feel like we're in Instagram era, like we're in the age of, you know, do it for the gram. And, yeah, that's just been a huge, I feel like, epidemic. And I think one of the biggest things that comes to social media is a new age, I don't know if that's the right word, of comparison, a new way of comparing yourself to other people. And, you know, comparing yourself is not like a new thing, you know, people have done it since the beginning of time. Whoops, that's a people issue, that's not, you know, a social media issue. But I feel like with social media, comparing has been something that's, I don't want to, like, different, I feel like it's such a broad term, but it's something that's, social media has greatly influenced how people compare themselves nowadays. You know, I feel like also a lot of times adults or just people, society complains how a lot of times kids are growing up too fast. And honestly, I feel like one of the main reasons is because of the media we're showing them. And it's not, I'm not trying to, like, you know, blame parents or blame adults or anything. But I think it's kind of a mutual responsibility for all people to make sure, like, or not just, or what am I trying to say? I think it's a mutual, like, you kind of have to have accountability about what you're consuming. So obviously, you know, when you're a kid, you're just kind of accepting what the world throws at you, you know? I don't really have control about the things people are posting on Instagram and stuff, and obviously you have control of what you look at and what you post, but a lot of the time, like, when you're young and, like, 12, like, for example, I got Instagram started when I was in 6th grade, or, no, Instagram started when I was in 5th grade, but it became a big thing when I was in 6th grade in 2012. That's when I entered middle school. And that was, like, the cool thing. Like, you have Instagram, you're cool. You know, it was just a thing all the kids did. So, obviously, you know, then I just tagged along. I basically never use Instagram now. I actually recently took a cleanse, like a detox off of Instagram. I'll get into that. But basically, going back to, you know, 6th grade me and just young me, Instagram was just, like, the cool thing to do, and there's a lot of, I guess, I'm trying to think how comparison comes from Instagram. That's where I'm trying to get at, and, you know, I'm trying to dig deeper than just the obvious, like, oh, this girl has an iPhone, and she posted it, now I need an iPhone, or this girl, you know, she has a dog, or I need a dog, you know, I'm kind of joking here, but, you know, I'm talking about, like, people post selfies, and, like, you know, I wish I looked like that. I wish, you know, like, she looks so good, why can't I look like that? And I think it becomes a thing of, like, just Instagram culture? I don't know, I not really feel like I'm expressing my thoughts well. I started talking about this I started thinking about this because, you know, adults and just people in general, I feel like tend to think that kids grow up too fast, and I'm thinking one of the main reasons, not the only reason, obviously you know, I'm not a parent, I can't tell you anything about parenting, but I think one thing that I see personally being, you know, a teenager and growing up with this platform, because I kind of have the same idea that I guess kids grow up fast, because I guess I saw that because I've always been, like, a childish person, still am. I've always just, like, you know, I feel like I've never been on people's level. Like, like I've always been just a few steps behind. That could just be just me, but I think one of the influences of that is just people, or young people, I guess, mimicking things you see on Instagram. People, you know, the age, we're kind of in the age of like, I don't know how to say this. Like, you see Instagram models, you see people wearing certain outfits, wearing certain things, and I think, I'm not saying these things are bad. Like, I really love, you know, like, fashion Instagrams, fashion photographers. I love, you know, if you look good, like, girl, post that picture. But, you know, I think it becomes it becomes too much when you start comparing yourselves to these people, and then kids start mimicking these people, what they see from, you know, others, they start doing themselves. And that's just something that has to do with culture in general. It's not necessarily like the kids' fault that they're, you know, raised in this culture. But I think it's a matter of just like knowing and teaching just other kids, and just mutually teaching each other as a society, you know, what's healthy for you to consume, and being aware that what you consume is affecting you, and just being able to filter that and to just have an understanding. Once you have an understanding, you're able to sort of check yourself, see where you are, and see if this is actually making a positive impact or not. And yeah, that went all sorts of directions, what I just said right there. But I definitely feel like we're in a do it for the gram sort of society now, and where comparison is a huge part of that. And yeah, I think it's also difficult for, and I know like a lot of times older generations or older people will be like, well, like why are these people so obsessed with, like, you know, social media and likes or whatever. And I think it's not necessarily an Instagram thing, but I think it's a people thing. You know, it's not Instagram is creating this problem for our kids. It's like these kids need to like be taught something different, you know? And when I think it becomes the thing about likes is people always say these kids just want to be liked, you know, they want to, you know, it's all about the double taps. I sound like a parent when I'm talking right now, but I really think it's about people wanting. I was listening to an interview with Keke Palmer. She was on the Breakfast Club a while back, and she was talking about people want attention. Like, and it's not necessarily because you want to be the center of a spotlight because you think you're important, etc. Like, attention just becomes from wanting to be just acknowledged. And everyone, when it comes down to it, everyone wants to be acknowledged. And, you know, but what Keke Palmer is saying is that what people are going wrong is they think the attention is love, but attention is actually like a result of love. Like, people are looking for love in all the wrong places, but they don't realize what they're actually going after is the like effects of love, not what love actually is. Like, because she was talking about self-love, and I'm going on all sorts of tangents here, but she was talking about how, well, what came up in the Breakfast Club is they're talking about 13 Reasons Why. I'm sure you all know about the Netflix series. You know, it regards issues of mental health, depression, suicide, and that's been, you know, an epidemic that's very relevant and recent. And once again, another, I guess, 21st century thing that, you know, we're all living through, but I'm growing up in, and my peers are growing up in. And she was talking about 13 Reasons Why, and why do you think all these kids are, you know, committing suicide, and why do you think this has become such a, like, a relevant thing that we have all of these, you know, TV shows, and it's become so what's the word? It's not popular, but it's become so, like, reoccurring, you know, like, on an all-time, like, we've never seen this before. And obviously it's not because other people haven't committed suicide in the past, but it's because it's becoming something that's just happening so often now. And they're asking, the Breakfast Club, they're asking, like, why do you think this is? A whole other topic. You can listen to it if you want to. Just look up the Breakfast Club, Keke Palmer. But she was saying how, like, people, you know, they're looking for love, and people will go to love in all the wrong places, so they'll, like, post pictures on their Instagram, or go to social media, or go to strangers, you know, on the internet, to find the self-love that you can't find anywhere else. Like, you need to learn how to love yourself first, before you can learn how to love other people, and but you have to love yourself first, but other people can love you, I think what she was saying. Yeah, so... And I think it's really true what she was saying, how, like, people, they think the attention is the love, but no, the attention is the result of trying to find love. And love is so much deeper. When I say love, I'm not just talking about, like, oh, you know, she wants a man's, or he wants a woman's, but it's more so of, like, a broad term, meaning the people want to be accepted. And that doesn't just go for young people, that goes for all people. But it's being accepted is something that, you know, teenagers and preteens want so badly that we have to be careful about where they're trying to find this at. And I think social media, people have equated that in a negative light because of this. Not because of the actual problem. People aren't really acknowledging the problem, they're just seeing the result of the problem, which is, you know, I guess people on Instagram doing these things for, you know, attention, being thirsty, you know, I guess young kids posting, you know, like, I guess, I don't know how to describe it, like, I think also in the age of, like, you know, hot selfies, you know, things that are just not exactly necessarily age appropriate. And I think people, or society, just sees this, they see that, and they're like, oh, kids are this, and kids are that, but it's like, we're not actually, I feel like, paying homage and paying enough attention, homage was probably not the right word there, but, like, paying enough attention to the actual issue. So, yeah, that's what I'm saying, and it's all about, you know, acceptance, self-love, you have to, you know, how to love yourself before anyone else can love you, or you can really know how to love others. So, deep stuff right there. Deep stuff. But, yeah, we went from talking about Facebook to then talking about that. But, you know, that was really on my mind, and I just wanted to talk about it. Some other stuff that happened, in this 21st century timeline, there's other stuff about, you know, like, violence, like Hurricane Katrina, more terrorism stuff, you know, war, Afghanistan, just so many things have happened, I feel like, in my lifetime, that I don't even, like, really acknowledge because I was too young, but it's interesting how this has just shaped my culture, and just shaped the way that we live, and how I grew up, you know? But this is a good one. 2008, Barack Obama wins the 2008 election, becoming the first African American president. This was monumental, and I wanted to talk about this. And this picture is so cute. Like, Sasha and... what's the other daughter's name? Is it... not Maria. Wait, Obama... kids. It's not Maria, but it starts with an M. I think. What if it doesn't, and I'm just, like, stupid? Okay, you know, you want to load. Sasha and Malia. Not Maria, Malia. I got this general sound. Okay. But there's so little in this picture. Oh my goodness. And, like, one of them is, like, in college. The other one's, like, 17. Which is so weird. Like, that she, like, the youngest daughter is, like, my age now. That's so weird. Okay. Anyways, but when 2008, when Barack Obama became the first African American president, I remember this. I didn't understand it at the time. I was in second grade when this happened, so I was 7. Ooh, that's so weird. Yeah, 2008, I was 7. I think we don't really understand. The main reason you understand is because we don't learn about, at 7, we don't learn about, like, the history of the African American, or the African in this country. I don't know how to word that. Because I don't want to make it seem like black people and just Africans in America, African Americans, were just slaves. But, or not just slaves, but I don't want to make it seem like African Americans were just slaves, or African Americans were just, fighting for their rights, or that they're just that, because, we're so much more than that. It's a beautiful culture. We have a beautiful race. But we don't learn about, I guess, why this is so significant, and why, having an African American president was monumental. It's less about, I guess, the African American struggle, but it's African American achievement. This is how far we've come. We've come from fighting for our right to vote to having the first black president. And obviously I didn't understand that at the time, 7, but it's interesting living through that. And I remember my parents being so excited, and I mean, when I'm 7, who cares about politics when you're 7? But I mean, okay, 2018 America, some different stories. Trump, every person, every child knows the name Donald Trump now. But 7, I didn't really care about politics, and I didn't really understand it. I didn't know. So yeah, that's my point. But I think being older and being able to see this now, it's interesting to have lived through that. And also my grandmother who lived through segregation, and who lived through people walking down the street and being called the N-word or whatever. She hasn't told me that specifically, but that's the sort of culture, that's the society she lived in. To her being alive to see the first black president. And there is I do want to mention James Baldwin did say, because we were talking about this in history the other day, and you were saying how John F. Kennedy, he was one of the first, he was the first to predict the closest to when we'd first get the first black president. He predicted in the 60s, or maybe it was 59, I don't know. But he predicted sometime around there, John F. Kennedy, that we'd have the first black president in 40 years. It ended up being around 50 years. And James Baldwin, he's great. Writer, inspirational, etc. He said once in an interview, I think, that, in response to John F. Kennedy's saying that, as having an African American president would fix the institutionalized racism we have in the United States. And that is very true. And I think it's interesting living through that. My history teacher is kind of talking about that. Yeah, now that we have a black president, yes, it's monumental, and I think that's just such a great, moment and a great image of African American excellence and achievement and, all that. All its glory, but it's not that having a black president is going to solve the world for black people, or solve America. A president can only do so much, and it's interesting. Also, a lot of people think that a lot of black people just voted for Obama because he was black and not because of what he believed in, which I think is kind of BS. I mean, I'm sure there are people that, think that way and do that thing, but I also don't think, I don't know, I didn't vote, obviously, I wasn't politically active at 7 when this occurred, so I can't really tell you, personal opinions and perspectives from other, I guess, black people that voted in the election, or just how black people responded to this election, but what I can say is that I think the African American community really saw this as something like a symbol of hope, or a symbol of I can't even put into word, awe, we made it, kind of a thing. I think black people have always kind of been one of us succeeds, we all can succeed kind of thing, one step for man, one big leap for mankind, whatever Neil Armstrong said. I mean, it wasn't in the context of African Americans, but, that's kind of that sort of concept. He made this step, which is, we're all able to follow after. And, So, yeah, I think it's interesting. And also going back to what James Baldwin said at the time, the 60s, or whenever this was, that as if having an African-American president would solve our institutionalized racism. That's something so true that we move all the way up to 2014. This is actually the last thing that's on our, that I wanted to talk about, and it's on the timeline. This is 2014. Riots break out across Ferguson after killing of black teenager Michael Brown. And Michael Brown, he was not the one that started Black Lives Matter. It was Trayvon Martin. I think that happened in 2012. Is that on here, actually? Is that on this timeline? It might not be. 2012? No. Oh, that's the rover on Mars. That's what's for 2012. Okay, but I think I do remember, not vividly, but I do remember being in the news that Trayvon Martin was shot, and he started, the Black Lives Matter movement, which I think is interesting to think about how I, lived through that. Let me look up exactly when this occurred, because I didn't, at the time, I think I was in 6th grade or so. I was definitely in middle school. Died February 26, 2012. So I was in middle school, I was in 6th grade, and I didn't understand at the time then. Once again, I was a child, I was 11. But I didn't really understand, I guess, institutionalized racism. I did not understand why it was significant that he was shot because, he, just the way he looked. And I think what makes this super monumental now, because Trayvon Martin would have been he was 17, I think, when he was shot, and I'm turning 17 this year, which is so weird to think. This guy had, a future, he had colleges, I think he was already, if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to put words into, I don't want to say incorrect information, but I think he was already, he was going to college, he had all this life in front of him, and someone took it because they thought he was a threat. And when this happened, I didn't understand, but it's such a huge issue. And I think also being, black and in America, it hits close to home. Because this happened to Trayvon, who's just a normal kid walking in a hoodie, where is he walking from? Was he walking from school? I think he was, walking from school. I'm not sure. Sorry, it's been a while. There's been a lot of situations, a lot of cases. But, just being someone just walking from school, it hits close to home because what happened to Trayvon could have happened to any of us. That could have happened to my brother. That could have happened to, any black man just because he's black and looks, quote unquote, threatening. And I just think it's so, I don't even know what the word is, but because of him, his parents wrote the book, Rest in Power, which, they started the Black Lives Matter movement, and so much has happened, and it's a great movement, and I do want to make a separate podcast episode, because we're running out of time, about black, I want to say what it's like, not necessarily what it's like being black in America, because that's different for everyone. That, your experience as a black person is different from another experience as a black person in this country. But I think I want to sort of speak on, I guess, different race-related issues in America and, the institutionalized racism, because that's something a lot of people don't understand. And especially because I come from a predominantly white area, my peers, I'm not saying all of them don't understand, don't get me wrong, there's some woke, there's woke white people, there's woke everyone, but I think a lot of white people that I encounter, that I have these conversations with, don't understand where I'm coming from when I say institutionalized racism. This was built into the foundation of our nation, and this is why we still bring up things like slavery and things like, civil rights, and because those types of things still influence us today, even though those were hundreds of years ago, and people don't understand that. They just think that's the past, we're in the present. And even though it's a different time, like it's the same concepts. I think Kanye said that once. I'm filming this in May, so I don't know how I feel like quoting Kanye, because if you remember May, Kanye saying some controversial things back on Twitter. Anyways, but he said something in one of his songs or something, I don't know where, but he said, like, racism is still alive, they just be concealing it, it's a different type of racism that we live in, so, yeah, I did actually want to talk about, 21st century, I did want to sort of, slightly talk about, talking about Kanye, art and, I guess, modern music. I think I might do that in a separate episode. I don't know how I will incorporate that. But, yeah, because I think about that because as I'm recording this in May, also, if you guys remember, Childish Gambino came out with this song, This Is America music video. Phenomenal. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It just has so much symbolism, and even though, I'm pre-filming these episodes, so it's been, some time, but even if you've already seen it, go rewatch it again. It's just, it encompasses a lot of really woke, social issues that are going on with us right now, and a lot of artists are doing that, and I really appreciate that. A lot of times people think hip-hop is just, vulgar and violent and disgusting and nasty, and not to say that, they're, there's, things can be, as I said earlier, what can be used for good can also be used for evil, and now that there's people who can't, there are definitely people who can't rap, and then I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you a thing? Lil Pump. But, the core of hip-hop is to talk about social issues and to talk about these things that affect us all, not just, black people, white people, Latino people, Asian people, etc. These are problems in America that encompass us all and that affect us all. Anyways, I want to talk more about this in another podcast episode, but I thought I would wrap this episode up here. Sorry for talking for so long. I mean, the kind of point of having a podcast is so I could just talk and speak my mind and get these ideas out, but I think we've had a good conversation. We've covered a lot of heavy topics, but I really enjoyed this, and I hope you did too. But I'm gonna go ahead and go now. Thank you so much for listening. I do want to get more in depth into, I think, some more specific parts of what I talked about in this episode. But we're gonna end it here. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening, tuning in. Be sure to leave a rating. Let me know what you think. Once again, I'm going to set up an email where listeners can send me feedback that way. So I'll probably announce that in the next episode. It may be in the description or in the, the podcast, whatever. So yeah, you can check for that. Anyways, I said that weird. I'm gonna blast. So, see you guys next time. Bye, guys.